Oh, Zilby, Zilby. He took my seat. All right. Well, that means you know that what that means when supervisor does what he wants. Okay, you get to hang out over there, and we get to switch to standing mode. Oh, yeah, you get to see the table raise up. Cat's not there anymore. Okay, we got that. Look at what this is. This is my floor mat. Okay, ready to continue on. One command to rule them all. We figured out how to install Rust and Rust Analyzer, but it's several steps and it involves interaction. We don't want to have to press yes during the setup process, so we'll need to figure out how to automate this. We can do this in 2 steps. Install Rust and Rust Analyzer at the same time, download Rust and run everything in one go. Download Rust up and run everything in one go. Okay, Rust and Rust Analyzer. We can run the Rust Analyzer and pass it -y to auto press Y for the interactive question. We can also pass it -c Rust Analyzer to auto install the Rust Analyzer component. So we show that. Download and run. Let's combine the wget and rustup commands together to make it easier to run in the Docker file. So in this case, now we have that -o to dash to go to standard out. Instead of wget -o rustup.sh, we now have wget -o dash. The dash tells wget to save the contents to standard out instead of a normal file. After the wget command, we use a pipe to ash dev standard in to auto execute the file that was downloaded with wget. We can now take what we've learned and add it to the Docker file. Notice the $curly bracket path. This syntax is used in the Docker file to take the environment variable already present in the image and inserts it in the command. Let's test this with a new build and run. We can use the command rustup -- version to verify that Rust is installed and in the path. Editor config. Helix is now supporting Rust, but it doesn't look very good. Let's set a config for Helix. We have a sample Helix config in the code repo. Let's copy that into a file config.toml in our repo. Okay. We need to add this config into the configuration directory that Helix uses, the home directory config Helix. We can do this with the copy command. To make Helix support colors, we'll also need to change the term environment variable to xterm 256 color. Let's rebuild the image and test out the config and make sure that colors are working. Note that we're removing the -- entry point override for this test and adding in the config.toml option so that we load straight into that file. We should be able to see different colors and the dark blue theme. We can quit with the :q return. What did I do there? It was Docker build. What was my run? Oh, run it, remove. Oh yeah, I just went into config.toml there. Running as not root. One last thing to do. Let's create a user so that we can run Helix as that user. Let's create a user that we can run Helix as instead of the root user. So we use the add user -d. Since Rust installs into the user's home directory, we're just using the add user -d option to not set a password. Don't forget to update the paths for the env and copy commands. We're done. Let's do one final test and make sure that everything is working as expected. Deployment. We have a working image that we can now share with our team. We can either have them build the image from the Docker file and then run it, or we can push the image to a repository so they only need to run it. If we want to push to a repository like Docker Hub, we'll first need to create an account. After creating an account, get a read-write access token. Run the Docker login command to authenticate to your Docker Hub account. Finally, we can push the image that we created with the Docker push command. In my case, you can see the repo at, Helix up there. Now, anyone on your team can just use the Docker run -rm -it-v blah 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 command to run Helix on their system without installing Helix or Rust locally. Challenge. Pick a command that you use and wrap it in Docker. Make sure the command is a terminal command. GUI commands are out of scope for this course. All right, it's a lot, 694 lines, but we can do this. Let me move you right. Oh, that puts it back over here. That's not what I want. Okay, I want you there, you go over here. You're gonna stay here. This will be fine. Oh, we're gonna have a new thing. So it's actually, no, I don't want you. I want to create a new directory. I'll probably need you up still. So let's go, we'll just sit in Docker Hub. That'll be fine. Okay, so what are you? You are Dockerizing Helix Challenge. Dockerizing Helix Challenge. That's a word, right? Okay. I want to maybe move you over. Yeah, let's move you over here. Oh, actually, you know what? No, I don't want to move you. I want to keep you here, and I do that, and now I can come back to here. This is okay, plain. That's great. I want. I suppose for just a second. No, I should open up VS Code in here. Where do I want to go? I want Dockerized Helix. Git pull, you're already up to date. So open up VS Code here. Right, so this is everything that we built, and this is our config.toml. So we have you set up. So what we can do here is we can start over with a brand new Docker file. And that's it. That's what we're working on. Okay. Fun times. I don't think I have anything more to build on. We can. Does this feel bigger? I feel like I made that bigger somehow. I think this is a better size. All right. Why did you switch back to here? I want you to go back to Introduction to Docker. Okay. We should be good now. Batman, hello. How are you doing today? Really have some quality content. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad it's helpful. Okay, let's full screen the lesson over here. So I have this over on the left screen. I'll be doing the recording here, like straight in front of me, and then I have both of your chats up on the right. We don't have ZilbyCam up. I don't have like anything else. So I should be good to go. I should turn down audio just in case somebody hits with that. Zilby's behind me on the chair, supervising while sleeping. That's his job. So I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to prepare for. I think it's time to just do. So with that being said and done, I guess it's let's do. All right, Dockering with Helix challenge. Where do I want to start this one? I guess like it's time for let's do a challenge. We will just talk about the lesson and the challenge. All right, whatever. No thinking. We'll just wing it like I always do. In this challenge, we're going to be creating an executable inside of Docker, which is another use case of Docker. And then this video is going to be my walkthrough about how to do it. Now, I've already sort of done this as part of the live streams and preparing for the course, so this isn't quite the same as Discovery that I did previously, but it is going to be the same process that I go through when I figure out like how to Dockerize something. So let's jump into it. For this specific challenge, we're going to be Dockerizing something called Helix. Now, if I pull up my other terminal here, this is Helix. This is a command line editor. If you watch the streams that I do, that I'm on, or a lot of the VODs, it's the main editor that I use, and I like it. It's a CLI editor. It's very similar to NeoVim or Emacs if you're used to those, because they're also command line editors. But if you wanted to set it up yourself, there's some stuff that you need to do. So there's a better way. Like, what if we were to be able to Dockerize it? So that way if you wanted to test it out, you could just run a Docker command and then you have Helix and all of its configuration already set up for you. That's the power of Docker. That's one of the really cool things that we can do. And in this case, it's going to be subtly different than what we used previously, where we're developing in Docker, we're putting an executable in Docker. So let's really quickly just sort of like look at the end result. So we saw the version of Helix that I'm planning on using like just natively on my system, but here in VS Code, I want to be able to do like run a command like docker run. I'm going to use the -it for interactive. I'm going to put the remove so we can remove it later. I don't give it a name. I need to like mount into a directory. So I'm on a Linux system, so it's the pwd to code, and then I want a Berserker Helix, I believe is what I named it, and this is on Docker Hub. And then whatever the latest is, I think it's gonna be fine. And then that's it. No extra code. It should just drop me in. So if I run this, repository name must be lowercase. Is it? Let's see, code. Why? Why are you unhappy with that? Let's actually go find this in Docker Hub. So if I look for Berserker, we have, let's go to mine, Berserker Helix. This is what it is. And then tags, we have latest. Okay, so it should just be latest. Latest should work. Let's double check that I've actually copied this correctly. So on Berserker Helix la. So Docker run IT rm just one dash for IT. pwd / code Berserker Helix latest. Repository name must be lowercase. Okay, now we're gonna have to redo it. What did I do wrong? Why doesn't this work? Do I have to? I shouldn't have to pull this first. This should look up Docker Hub. Let's try Docker pull. Because I am doing Docker run. That is lowercase too. That's weird. Docker pull Berserker Helix latest. That works. Okay, let's try this again. We'll do a run. IT remove. Oh. Can you see what I did wrong? I forgot the dash V. I forgot the dash V. Okay. Okay, we get to start over again. Now I guess we have this Berserker Helix up here that we can take a look at. All right. Take two. Okay. Pet Zilby for good luck. You won't let me fail a second time, right? All right, here we go. Second try. Welcome to the Dockerizing Helix challenge. In this challenge, we're going to be taking a command, in this case, Helix, which is a CLI editor. If you've watched my live streams, most of the time, the editor that I'm using is, in fact, Helix. It's very similar to Emacs or NeoVim, basically a CLI editor like VS Code, but in the terminal. And we're going to be putting that into Docker to use it as another use case of Docker, which is as an executable. We can basically run commands from Docker. And this is a challenge in the way that this is going to be more of like a walkthrough. And then I would love if you tried afterwards, try to do this on your own. Try to pick a terminal command that you like to use and then Dockerize it so that anybody else can use it. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this is supposed to look like already on our own. I'm going to go ahead and change directories into some place that I have a like Rust code. Now in the article, I give you a repo to a Rust repository that I've written. I actually just have that locally here. So I'm going to go to our Axum X Twitter clone. And we're going to run Docker run. I want to IT this for interactive mode. We're going to remove this so we don't need the container hanging around afterwards. This is just an example. We are going to volume our current working directory into /code inside. And then that should be it. I don't really need any ports. I don't need anything else enabled for this. And so the name of this image, if we go to Docker Hub, because I have this deployed out so that anybody can run this, is Berserker Helix. So if we copy that, I can paste this in here. We can just do latest. It auto defaults to the latest if you don't hand it the latest tag. We can hit return. It can't find this locally, so it's going to go ahead and download it from Docker Hub. And when it's done, it has dropped us into a Helix editor here in our terminal, which is kind of weird looking to have an editor inside of an editor, but this is what it is. We have a CLI editor now. If I do space F, I can see all the files for this repo is in here. And if I search for like main and load it up, not only is everything sort of like looking correct, if we give it a little bit of time, Rust Analyzer, which is the tool for Rust that basically lints it does more than linting our code, but it is it's like an auto correct. It gives us like auto suggestions. It does linting. It does all sorts of different stuff for us. It does take a little bit of while for it to run up, which is more of Rust being slow rather than just it being slow in Docker. But once this loads, it will start giving me good information about like what each type is. And that's that. This is now Rust Analyzer running, well, Rust, I guess, like running in Helix, which we don't have to have installed on our system. So let's walk through of like how to actually do this ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and quit out of it. To quit out is just like Vim. We're going to do just press escape :Q and then exclamation point. If you accidentally wrote anything in there, this will make sure that you quit out. Otherwise, it will ask you to save or do something else, and we don't need to do that. So quit out. Excellent. Okay, so how do we create something like that ourselves? All right, well, we have to like create our own repo. So let me jump back into our previous directory, which is in this Dockerized Helix. This is the repository that I used to create that repo, but I've deleted all the contents of the Docker files. We can start over from scratch with it. And that's pretty much where we start. We start with a Docker file. So what do we want? Like, what do we want to have? In this case, we want to run Helix, right? It's not going to be specific Helix, like only Rust, although right now it only supports Rust. But it could potentially support many other languages. So I don't want to base it on like, Rust Alpine or Rust over anything else. Let's go ahead and just base it on, I'm thinking Alpine here, because I want this to be as small as possible. And already we're going to be installing lots of things, and that will, and I want to show off like my like how I would go about like researching how things work. How to get things to work, even if we don't know how to do them. So we're going to start with from, and then I want Alpine of some kind. So I'm going to go search in Docker Hub for Alpine, and it is indeed just Alpine. So that makes sense. I don't think I care about us like locking it to a specific tag, so I'm just going to use latest. So Alpine latest. We also there's some things that we already know that we need. So for example, we know that we need a volume mount for the code that we're editing, because it is an editor. We need code to edit. So we'll have our volume, and I want this to go into /code. And then a workdir. Okay, so I want to put our workdir into /code, so that way whatever we're doing is now inside of there. Now, I'm a big fan of small changes and testing, so we're going to do that a lot. So I can now, let's close this down because we don't really need much more from the sidebar there. We're going to do a Docker build. Now, while I'm building this, I don't need to use username / Helix like I would when I eventually deploy that. If I were to use I want to do it different here. So we're going to do a build. I'm just going to call it Helix in this specific case. All right, so build Helix. This can be like latest. I don't think it really matters. And then dot. Oh, and it's -t. Build -t. Helix latest dot. This will now build our Docker file, and it's ready for us to test. So we can do a Docker run. Let's see, I want -it. I'm probably going to be using the remove a lot on these. Let's see, it remove. We want our volume. So pwd /code. And I think we don't have any like commands or anything else. I don't know what Alpine is going to drop us into, so we're going to do we're going to try to override and just go into bash, right? So I want we call this Helix. So Helix latest bin bash. And the first problem that we run into is here bin bash doesn't exist. And so it turns out that bash isn't a shell that comes with Alpine by default. And there are other shells that we can use. There is sh, and there is also ash. So if I go to bin ash, that drops us in here. And now we're correctly inside of our container, which is great. All right, so how do we install Helix? Well, Alpine comes with a package manager called APK. And to use APK, we're as root right now inside of here, so it's not really going to be a problem to just run these commands. We don't need sudo, we don't need anything else. We are the root user. So we can just do APK update, and that will fetch all of the repositories that it's going to get updates from. And I can search for Helix. Okay, well, found Helix 2310. If I want more information on it, just to make sure it really is what I think that it is, we can do APK info, which then tells me, oh, it's a, okay, postmodern modal text editor. That matches, okay, that's the website, that this seems to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. We're going to do APK install Helix. Right, it's not install. On APK, it's add Helix. Okay, great. So it adds this, but it also tells me that I need to install this tree sitter thing to support different languages. And apparently there's a meta package, tree sitters grammars, to install all of them. Let's just do that one. So we're going to do APK add tree sitter grammars. And now it's added, well, support for all the languages, at least all the languages that we might care about. Like, obviously there's way more languages than this in the world, but these are the ones that tree sitter supports. At least the ones we can get on Alpine here. Okay, so let's take what we've learned and add it back to our Docker file. So let's see. It almost doesn't really matter where I put this. So I'm going to go ahead and just add in a run here. We want to run APK update. And then I'm going to do this and. And the reason I'm going to do this is because each run command is going to be its own layer. And layers are cached. I don't know if you've noticed this when you've run the build command. It's like, oh, pulling this from the cache. Now, if I did APK run APK update and then another run APK add like Helix, for example, it would run this the first time that we build it. Great, perfect, exactly what we want. But the second time we do this, it would use the cached version of whatever was update, which right away won't be a problem because I'm sure that within minutes there won't be an issue. But if, like, let's say months from now, if this is still the same system we're running on, it will see that cache and reuse it. But what if an update has changed to a repo? Well, now we're not going to get the latest packages because it won't know about them. So we want to make sure that if we ever have a change to this line, it runs everything, including the APK update again. So instead, we're going to do APK update and if this is successful, also run APK add Helix and then the tree consider grammars. Okay, this is great. Now, there's another command. We used previously command, right? To run a command from inside of the Docker image when we create the container. But there's another one called execution. Let's see, entry point. And entry point is very similar to command, as in it's going to be the command that we run when we create the container. But the difference here is that this is for executable containers. If there's any extra commands, like an overwrite at the end of the run statement, or if we even have a command, they end up being options added to the end of this entry point, which is really cool. So basically, I'll be able to do Helix space, run this container space like a file name, and it will just open that up in, well, the Helix editor, which is exactly what we want. So I want to do entry point. Helix is not the command; it's hx to run Helix. And so that should work, but we're going to find out whether or not this does. There's always a chance, and I believe we're going to run into one where it doesn't work when we do this. But we'll fix that. We'll get to that. So let's go ahead and save you. Let's quit out of this container. That container got removed because they had that --rm, and let's go ahead and rebuild this again. So we're going to do docker build. I'll do that. Overwrite the Helix latest again. Here is now installed Helix and installed the tree sorter grammars. Everything's fine. So now we want to run this. So we're going to do a docker run. We want the IT again, the RM. We want the volume. pwd to /code. We want Helix latest, and that's it. The entry point should now be Helix, and I want to see that I'm dropped into Helix. Well, hey, there we are. We're dropped into Helix. This is great. Notice that it looks really terrible compared to that Helix version that we ran before. And that's because there's no config. We don't have any, there's no configuration setup. There's no theme setup. So this is like the default one that you would get in your system if you just run it to begin with at the beginning. But the basics should still work. I should still be able to do space F and then see our Docker file and this config that I just happen to have in here. So this is great. I mean, at this point in time, I could start using this Helix to edit the Docker file and then rebuild from there. I'm not gonna do that though, because everything looks better in VS Code here. So we're gonna go ahead and quit, and we're out of that. And notice that as soon as we quit Helix, we're out of the container. So the container quits out because it is the executable essentially. It's not running something else. So this is great. Excellent. We have Helix. Now we need to add language support. So to do that, we're going to, we need a couple different things. So in order to install Rust, we need a C compiler of some kind in here. And, as you know, Alpine is really interested in being a really small image, so it doesn't have a C compiler for us right now, but we can APK add one. We just have to choose which one we want. And it turns out that there's two choices for us. We can add GCC or Clang. So I'm just going to go with GCC. So if we jump back into one again, so we want to Docker run. Now, what happens if I want to, because if I try to like jump into here and like, I don't know, let's do bin ash, it actually loads the bin ash repo as opposed like into Helix as opposed to, or not repo, command. Like it opens up the command in Helix, which is not what I want. So to override the entry point, we can give it another command here before the Helix latest, which is -- entry point. And then I want that to be bin ash. And that drops us in into ash inside of the container. Excellent. So we want to install GCC. Yeah, GCC. So if I do apk search GCC, we have a bunch of these, but I do see just GCC available here. If I do a apk info GCC, it knows what that is. It's the GNU compiler. Okay, this is gonna be fine. This is exactly what we want. So I want to do a apk add GCC. This is pretty fast. It just sort of adds that. So let's go ahead and add in GCC here. All right. While we're here, we can sort of experiment with also adding in Rust. Like, what do we need to do to get Rust installed? Now, usually we use RustUp to install Rust. And RustUp there is a version of RustUp available on the APK repo, but it's not the right version. It actually is missing, it's old enough version that it's missing the right, like it won't auto install things for us that we really need. So instead, we have to go grab the latest version of RustUp from, well, Rust. And we can go find Rust lang, we want to get started, and here's the command that we want to run. The problem obviously, hey, no, not now. The problem obviously is that this is curl, and we don't have curl, we have wget. So I need to essentially do this with wget. So let's see what we can do here. I'm gonna hit Control C so I don't actually run that, but we can use this as our reference. So if we do wget, I don't need to tell it to use protocol HTTPS. I think this will be fine. I think what I can do is I can just say, hey, give me this. So if I just use that and I don't do anything else, it saves it to index.html, which is not really all that helpful. But that index.html is the RustUp script. I can actually run it as RustUp. So here, I can chmod it to make sure it's executable. So plus executable index.html, and we can just run index.html, and it's actually now attempting to install Rust. Great. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. We can do better. So if we do wget help, there's a couple options here. So if one of them is this output file. So I could output this to a file, and then we can like manually install it and figure out how to install everything. But there's this save to file that for standard out. So I could do wget -o dash for standard out. So standard out is, if we take a look at this command again, standard out is basically to the terminal. So if I don't do anything else, it's just going to dump this entire script to my terminal, which is not great, but the pipe here allows us to pipe into another command, which in this case sh shell is going to be then executing that. So we could pipe that to, let's try sh and see if that works. That give us, oh, I need to give it the actual URL, don't I? Which is this. So copy you, put you in here. It downloads it, and now it's trying to just run this, which is great. Okay. Problem, it wants input here, which is not great. I need this to basically just automate run, because we can't give input when we do a cargo build. It has to be all just on its own. So once again, we're going to cancel this, and I need to maybe -- help and see if there's like any information that we can do. Unfortunately, let's see, that didn't help there. Maybe it's like -h. Oh, it's just writing this to standard. Okay, so let's actually write this instead of the standard out. Let's write this to a file. I'm going to call this rustup.sh. We want a chmod +x to rustup.sh. We want to run rustup.sh. Okay, and then we can get some help here. All right, so what can we do here? Usage. Okay, rustup init, which is rustup. That's what we want. -v for verbose. I don't really care about verbose. We can quiet for the progress output. I don't actually care one way or the other for that. Ooh, disable confirmation prompt -y. So okay, we want a -y in there. Let's see, default host. Okay, that's fine. Default tool chain. That's okay. Profile, like none of those I really care about. Oh, components. So I mentioned before that we're using Rust Analyzer. So we need Rust Analyzer as the component. So that's something we could add in. And then the rest of it, we're just going to let it auto detect / create as their normal defaults. Let's bring this back in again. And we're going to have -y for the yes, and then -c Rust Analyzer. And oh, illegal option -y. Oh, is this probably because like the shell? So instead of this, what if I put this into ash? Are you happy? No. Okay, so I have to pipe this to I have to figure out how to get the shell. That is a shell here. So how do I get it to execute what I want? Maybe this -c. Like I see this -c in script within args for that. That might work. Let's try that. So we'll do shell -c, and then there's args, I'm assuming for the script. So let's find out. Oh, but that's for standard out. Looking at like how I did this before. It was, let's see, putting it all together. Oh, I did use, okay, yeah. So in ash, there is this -dev standard in that we can use. So, okay, get this from standard in, which grabs it, well, whatever was to standard out here, then grab it from standard in, okay, and then I can, the rest of this work. So I want the -y. I don't want this -c in here because it's not a command. And then this should work. This installs Rust. This installs Rust Analyzer, and everything gets everything the way we want it to. Okay. Let's go ahead and take what we learned here And while this is installing, and add it into our Docker file. So we already got the GCC, so this is gonna be another run, so its own layer after this. So it's gonna be run. Let's up arrow for this and copy you in to here. Okay, excellent. Rust is now installed. This is great. Okay, to get started, you may need to restart your current shell. This would reload your path environment variable to include cargo's bin directory, which is in our home directory, cargo bin. Okay, that's something good to be aware of. Now, if I attempted to use something like rust up version just to sort of see what version it is, it doesn't. It's actually not rust up. I want to check out cargo is something installed with Rust. So let's do cargo version. It doesn't know what it's found, where that is. But if we take a look at our home directory, so if I cd into my home directory, which in this case is root, there should be a .cargo in there. So I need to update my shell. So that's going to be a export path equals, where is this? This is going to be slash root cargo bin, and then I want the rest of path in here too, so I don't lose that. And now if I try to use like cargo version, now I can see that. So I need this command too. So after this is done, we need to do a run export. But actually I don't need to do an export path like this with run because we have environment. So we would do environment variables. Our key is going to be path. And then the value is going to be, well, in this case, it's root cargo bin. And then the path. Now I can't just do $path, but notice how VS Code is trying to be really helpful and saying like, hey, I have all these others here. We can try one of those. So curly brackets, path like that. Now the curly brackets here is telling Docker to use the environment variable that already exists in the image for this, which is going to be perfect. That's exactly what we want. So if we save that, that updates our path, and we should be good to go here. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to exit out of our container. We're going to rebuild this. Back into latest again. It's now, okay, so it's installing the tree sitter, installing all this stuff, installing Rust now, and Rust Analyzer. Excellent. Okay, so let's test. Let's make sure that this works the way we expect it to. So I'm going to go ahead, not up arrow return. We're going to go into our run again. Our entry point is still bin ash. That's fine. We're going to drop into our container here, and all I want to do is run that the command cargo -ash version. And there we go. Cargo is installed. That means Rust has been installed. Excellent. That's exactly what we were looking for. Okay, perfect. So next up, we want to config. We want to make the Helix editor look good, because if you remember, it just sort of was black and white. It doesn't look good at all. Now in here, in the repository that I linked in the article is this config, and this is a Helix config that we can use. We want to add this into the appropriate spot, which on a Linux system is going to be in the home directory of whoever you're using as .config helix, and then it just is config.toml. So let's go ahead and add in a copy. So we want to copy. Our source is going to be this config.toml. And then the destination here is going to be, well, the home directory. So this is going to be root, not cargo. We want config helix, and then I just want this to be config.toml there. Okay, so if we save that, let's go ahead and quit out of here. We have to rebuild this again. It's super fast to build now because of those cached layers. Let's remove the entry point so that way we are just using the entry point that we have in there, which is the to run Helix. And now everything looks a lot better. It's a dark mode now. We don't have like pure white blinding our eyes. Everything still works the way we expect it to. And if we jump into, like, let's say the Docker file, yeah, things are different. They look better. So let's go ahead and exit out. And okay, so what else do we need to do? We want to set this as a user to not run as root, because writing all of our code as root is not necessarily the best idea. So we already have, like previously when we used Alpine, that user add user. So let me go to, it was user add, right? Well, let's jump in to, where's my run? I'm in here, it was add, yeah, add user. And if I take a look at help here, we'll use this because we're going to have to do something slightly different. Because Rust is installing into the user's home directory, we have to have a separate home directory. Otherwise, Rust is going to be installed into the /code directory alongside where our source code is, which is not great. We don't want that. So we want to do add user. Let's allow it to create its own home directory. So I don't need to override it and tell it. All I really need to do is don't assign a password, and it will create the home directory automatically. And that's it. So just -d. So I should be able to, let's put all the runs together here. So we'll do a run add user. We'll just do a -d because that's the only one I care about. And we'll name this code, or maybe Helix, Helix user. And then that's it. That should drop us into Helix user. Now, we can have multiple work directories at once. So if I maybe drop our very end work directory down here, let's do another work directory as /home Helix user. And that's going to be the home directory that we've just created. And it should be the correct path too. Okay. I should also realize I should, because we have this /code, let's go ahead and make sure that everything is owned by the user. So we're going to run chown, and then it's Helix user /code. And then I want to make sure that this is just the home directory. I think that works, because let's do can't remember if I need a -r, like a recursive on that or not. Well, let's do the recursive on it, and that'll be fine. Okay, this happens like before anything's in there anyway. So yeah, I guess in that case, the recursive won't really matter. All right, workdir, we do that. Environment, okay, so we have this entry point. This is great. We want to update all of these things to now work with this new user. So let's rearrange this and sort of take a look at what we've got. So we have our from Alpine latest. We have this volume code. We install Helix, tree sitters, grammars, and GCC. We grit Rust and install it. We create a new user. We update the code directory. We change our work directory to home Helix user. And at that point, I actually don't know if I need to change the work directory to the home Helix user. I don't think there's anything we're doing with that. Environment. Okay, so we have to update our path. So instead of root, this is now going to be /home Helix user cargo bin path. Okay, so what that means is before I run this command here, we have to do this as the user. So we're going to do user Helix user. Well, that means that this needs to be created up here. That needs to be after the Helix user is created, is switched to, and the chown, that needs to be run as root. So this needs to be root, this needs to run, then we switch over to Helix user, and everything else is now as Helix user. Okay, that's great. So we run wget, we set our environment variables to home Helix user cargo bin path. Okay, that's great. Entry point, I'm gonna go ahead and put this at the bottom. I just like to have the entry point at the bottom because to me, like I always look at the bottom for like wherever is the command that runs in the image. We have copy config toml. Okay, so I want to copy this as / into home. The home, what is it called? Home Helix user config Helix, and then there's a command so we can chown Helix user Helix user. So make sure that this is chowned into the correct user here. Okay, so that works fine. And then we're going to switch our work directory to /code, which is where all the work is going to be happening. And then entry point Helix. All right. I think we're done, but we want to do, a test. We want to make sure that everything really is working the way we expect it to. So another build. So docker build. And then you failed. Okay, so when I tried to run chown, it did not complete successfully. Why? So it didn't work. It didn't work the way we wanted to. Now, what we can do is I can comment this out. Let's rebuild this again. Whenever something doesn't work like this, I like to do that comment out so that way I can, well, everything else should work, hopefully. I can jump in there and we can find out why didn't it work. Maybe we can then run the command and then get it, well, make it work. So let's jump back into here again. We're do docker run. I do want the entry point bin ash because we're running as the wrong user here. This is, who am I? Is the Helix user, which I won't have permissions to do this. So hold on, I have to quit out of here. I want to comment out everything else. Good news, that makes the build really fast. So we're gonna rerun this. Who am I? We're root again. pwd, we're in / because our work directory was never set. Now we want to, the add user was set for this. So I want to try running this command here. Chown Helix user, and that works. Huh. Let's echo. That was a 0. It told me that it was a non-zero exit code. And then if I take a look at the volume, ls -al/code, it is now Helix use. Okay, so that's what I expect. Now, all of these are also root 2, which is not great. It'd be nice if they were owned by a Helix user. So maybe we need to do this after, well, actually shouldn't really matter. It should still be fine. Let's try chown Helix user to /code. Let's try a chown -r for recursive and see if it really wants that. And if I build this again, let's see if we get that same error. We do. So we add the user, Helix user, and then we attempt to chown/code with this. So failed to process, binsh, c chown, Helix user. Oh, now I was trying to use binsh. That's interesting. Now, if I go back into our run again, now even though that build didn't work, I can still jump in via the run because the previous image still exists for us. Now, we just noticed that this is binsh that is trying to run here. So what if we use, what if we switch to binsh -c for command, and then we put this chown in here.